When you go to sleep at night, there is a distinct pattern that the sleep follows, a structured pattern of sleep as far as the soul goes. The first thing it does is leave the body and go through a period of R&R, rest and recuperation, from the trials of the day that has just gone by. It meets and joins with the half of the soul on the inner planes for a brief period of rejuvenation. This may be thought of as a bonding. It re-energizes the spirit of the person, the soul of this person, as far as completeness goes. Because it is a separated soul during the working hours, it needs to have this bonding with the rest of its total beingness to rejuvenate and restore and prepare for the trials of another day on the earth plane. Once it has gone through this period, then as a whole soul, it attends classes. If there is a particularly tough problem going on in the life of the body, he may ask for individual counseling and not attend a lecture or a classroom that night. Most likely there is a class, an ongoing class, that he's working in each evening, a class similar to the courses at our universities. There are some classes that are prerequisite to others. It's very, very similar to our life here. Which classes it will attend will depend upon the evolutionary level of this soul. All people on the inner planes at night will have a period of classwork. It could be a big group in a lecture hall, or it could be on a one-to-one basis, just as though it were on the earth plane, but it's simply the soul. Then there are fun times on the inner planes. For example, a group of souls who are dedicated to, let's say, music in this particular lifetime will get together and just simply have a party. Or perhaps they are all artists. But like will attract like on the inner planes as far as these fun time periods, and also as far as the lessons go. The universal law of like attracts like holds totally in all aspects of the inner planes. It is not opposites attract. There is no sex difference and of course no sexual intercourse because there are no physical bodies. There is a bonding between the two halves of the soul that comes the closest to anything that would relate to our act of sexual intercourse. The 2 hours that the soul is out of the body would be equal perhaps to a 24-hour period of earth plane time. About 1 hour to 12 would be approximately accurate. As far as what happens to time, it would be like putting a film into fast speed. So much can be learned and gained and understood and known in that 2-hour time period that is very frustrating for souls when they re-enter the body and are slowed down into the very, very slow vibration of the earth plane. The whole soul is what experiences the inner planes, not the half soul. Each evening there is a period where the two halves of the soul meet and join up or bond. Then they are with others, either in class or at a fun time at a lecture hall, strolling along the banks of a river, walking through gardens, in libraries, searching out data. At the end of the night there is a separation period again. All of this can be squeezed into a 24-hour period. Classes, even individual counseling, a party, rest and relaxation, renewal, rejuvenation, all of this can take place within a 24-hour period and does each night in the 2-hour period of earth plane time. Therefore, the physical body is living a 24-hour period, and the spiritual body also lives its own 24-hour period. So a person who is well aware of what's happening on the inner planes can make terrific strides forward in their evolution if they can tap into and remember and bring forward what went on during the nighttime hours. Relate this, if you will, to when the husband comes home from work. Perhaps he and his wife embrace. Perhaps they go to a party. Perhaps they attend a lecture or class. Perhaps they prefer instead just to go to bed. No matter. They are together until the following morning, and the husband or the wife or both must leave in the morning to go to work. They are separated during the day. They know that separation is coming daily. It's the same thing on the inner planes when they know they will separate as the day begins for the entity on the earth plane, and that they will come together again that evening. There is no difference in these two analogies, even to the point of one half of the soul being of the female characteristics and the other half the male. They do join and bond, but they are bonding with themselves, with the other half of themselves, instead of with another fragmented being, as in the case of husband and wife. This is what is taking place on the earth plane. People in their relationships and their marriages are trying to bond with other fragments. This is why relationships are difficult to work out. But this is where the lessons lie that will speed up what is being learned on the inner planes. Lessons And attitudinal behavior and relationship problems can be taught over and over again in the lecture halls on the inner planes. But if it's never brought onto the earth plane and experimented with, and the concepts applied to the reality of earth plane life, then those lessons are never cemented into the beingness of that soul. This may explain why so much of our education is not as it should be. The application of the lesson is not included in the school. Whatever is being taught must have a period of practical application for it to be assimilated in the brain of that person. The same is true of the lessons on the inner planes. The secret of manifestation of UFOs is inside the mind of all humans. This is why it is so confusing and so hard to understand. Every human being on the earth has these other beings as part of themselves. If the personality on the earth plane in a physical body opens up the higher levels of his mind, he causes the rebirth into continuity. This means that from that time on he will be able to be in communication with all his previous personalities, and also as he continues opening unused levels of his mind, he can be in contact with future personalities that the seedcore is planning. This rebirth sets up a vibratory field in the brain that can then be used to lock onto a particular previous personality of the seedcore that the human feels great attraction to, and he is then able to communicate with them. It may be only one of the previous personalities, or it may be with several, or even with all. It depends upon many circumstances as to which way it works for each human. Sometimes a human can set up a weak magnetic field and be able to see the previous one himself in a visionary field. But it is only the human himself that can see it. It must be a much stronger magnetic field before the human can manifest the previous being in actual physical reality to the point where it can be seen by others and photographed, and even, as in the case of the aliens in Roswell, New Mexico, be brought down and touched as a physical object. The point of all this is that it needs to be clear that the manifesting of UFOs is done by humans themselves. Aliens are the other halves of our souls. When reading about alien abductions, it is very often mentioned that a bond or kinship seems to be there between the abductor and the abductee. This is very true. Spaceships are a reflection of the great mind of humans. When a spirit thought form or entity enters a human form, only half of it enters the physical body. The other half stays out of manifestation to guide the half that is in manifestation from above. These other halves are the spacemen, and are at the same time are the half of every human being on the earth. They are not in manifestation, so to us they are what we would consider as ghosted on a computer screen. They are there, but cannot be accessed until the right keys are struck to activate them. From all of this you can see that we are them, they are us. They are merely reflections, but they are reflections of the mental processes of humans. This is quite difficult to explain, but they can impress the mind of the human in manifestation if the connections have been made. When they can impress them, they quite often will instigate the whole UFO occurrence for the good of their other half on the earth plane, if they deem it necessary. If this is the only way they have of instigating growth in their other half, they will do so. After all, that is what they sent that half down into the animal body for, was to instigate spiritual growth in themselves. Communication with them is similar to earth plane communication. When living their lives, all of these beings get telephone calls from the beings on earth, the humans who are the present time physical manifestation of themselves. In other words, the beings from the higher realms are previous roles the actor has played or previous lives our souls have experienced. When they receive their phone calls, they are in communication for several minutes, or what seems like minutes to them. In reality, it would be much longer to the human on earth receiving the information being given. The further up into the higher planes you go, the faster the information is given. In other words, the higher they are, the less time out of their lives is taken. At times, these higher beings will leave information on a recording machine, similar to us leaving a message on an answering machine, and the human simply connects and picks up the information without direct contact with the higher being. There are times when the higher being will actually briefly take up residence in the brain cells of the human These are very advanced beings to be small enough to do this. This is when the higher wisdom of the ages is being given. At other times, they are traveling in their mode of moving around, which is a ship they build around themselves with their thoughts, and can be reached by cell phone. Also, at times, they send a fax to the individual on the earth, and it stays in the fax machine division of the mind until the human retrieves it. It can all be compared to circumstances on the earth. They build their own ships in their minds, just as humans build their own houses in their minds at all times. In other words, they manifest what they envision mentally in their lives. So also do higher beings manifest what they envision. If they want to think of their home as a nest, they will build a nest and hibernate until they want to travel. Perhaps they will envision a very fast aircraft, and then this will manifest. While on a trip, they may decide to change the form of their ship. They can do this by meditating for a few seconds, and the craft they are traveling in will change instantly from an oblong shape to a round shape. They would most likely do this to travel more easily and lower vibratory rates. In other words, they may start out with an oblong shape, gliding smoothly through space until it comes into rough vibratory rates or turbulence. At that point, they would realize that a round ship would sail more smoothly in these seas and would effect an instant change. When masses of people leave the Earth at the same time, it triggers a heavier reflection pattern which allows more sightings to take place. These sightings are caused by the emotion attached to the people leaving the planet en masse, such as what happens during a war. These people are very close to the planet and do not need to come through the turbulence because they are sightings from the astral plane. It's very strange, a thing that happens when so much energy is transmuting all at the same time. It triggers an opening because these people have the opportunity to reapproach the planet after having left in order to say their goodbyes and visit areas for the last time. It is a privilege allowed them and cannot be taken from them. When many leave at once, there is a period of heavy activity which translates to more UFO sightings. These people can, for the most part, build their own spaceship around them for their farewell visit, and they will be seen by many humans of the mixed energy that will be used, both ethereal and physical energy. Therefore, there will be an increase in sightings, a flap, if you will. If research is done on time periods of flaps, they can be tied in to mass death on the Earth plane due to some disaster. Some research should be done on this.